Hey, this is Al Crouch with Indiana Lazy Bushman. Today we're got the knife finished out of the oven at 500 degrees for an hour. I wanted to clarify some stuff up a few people had comments with. If you're going to be tempering with motor oil, make sure you're doing it in a well ventilated area. It will work, but it's nasty and dirty like I said before. And there was another comment that a gentleman had about me using a galvanized pipe and how zinc oxide was poisonous. I worked in a steel mill for 5 years, and I worked in the oil tempering part of it, and they had galvanized steel there. You don't ever want to heat galvanized steel up because it's got zinc oxide in it, which will poison you. But what I was doing with this was blowing through this, and you've got to put the zinc oxide directly into the fire and burn it off. This, as you can see, still has all of it on it. I haven't burnt any of this off, and I'm using it to blow into the fire to heat it up more. So you're not going to get poisoned off this, putting this into the fire, unless you're just actually got it heated and you're breathing it in while you're heating that up red hot. Anyway, we're going to put the handles on it today. So you're going to need either your Gorilla epoxy or your Loctite epoxy or your off-brand epoxy. So let's get started. You want to get even amount of epoxy when you're mixing, so that it hardens to the correct hardness. So we got our epoxy out, and we're going to mix it up and rub it on the knife. That's the first thing we're going to do. I just take the epoxy and spread it out like this on the where I'm going to put my handle at on the knife. Give it plenty of epoxy, be generous with it. It's not going to hurt a darn thing. Now then, we're going to place the handle on the knife and use these clamps here to clamp it. Then I'm going to double check, see where I got it. Okay. Now we're going to let this set up, and after this sets up here for a while, then we'll get back and we'll clamp the other side. Another thing I wanted to talk about too, to clarify something up, was when I talked about tempering the blade or normalizing the blade in the oven, Blacksmith made a comment. He said that part was tempering, and when we're quenching it in the oil, that part is just hardening the blade. So I wanted to correct that on there for the young people who are watching this, so that way they got the terms corrected. So when you're dipping it in the vegetable oil for your first, or your motor oil, that's hardening or quenching. Then when we put it in the oven, that's tempering at the 500 degrees for an hour to get a Rockwell hardness of 55 to 60, somewhere right in there. Now a website did have normalizing, stated that normalizing was putting the knife in the oven after you had hardened it. So I'll take the blacksmith's comment that he gave to me over what that because he's been doing that for a longer time than I have as far as blacksmithing. As far as knife making, I've been doing this for 30 years. So anyway, we'll get back to you as soon as this gets hard. Now that the glue's set up on this, we're going to go ahead and remove our clamps, and we're going to drill these holes out before we glue our next handles on, our other set. Alright, now that we got our holes drilled out, clean off some of this excess glue here. Alright, now we're going to add the second set of handles on. Remember, make your epoxy evenly. Another thing that can affect your epoxy is if you are mixing it in cold weather, it can take longer to set up, or it might not adhere to your knife if your knife is cold. So make sure that you're got your knife at room temperature. It'll help with the epoxy setting up. Now after this side sets up, and make sure that you get it evenly on there. These ends are even. You don't want them to be off. Okay. Now we got our other side glued. As soon as that's dried out, we'll be ready to drill our holes and start pinning it. So stay tuned. Well, we got the other side done now, so we're going to drill this out and now we're going to start pinning it. One other thing I wanted to share with you is if you get a scrap piece of wood when you're drilling out, it won't burr out like this on your wood too, but I got enough wood on this that I wasn't worried about it. But just put another piece of wood down and drill it down, and that keeps it from burning out. Like that. Make sure you get your holes cleaned out really good. Put your pins. I'm going to say something else here real quick. This drill that I'm using is a lower speed drill, but if you're going to be using a high speed drill like the big drill over here, if you're going to be using this to drill this, you take this from this and make sure you put it in the vise, because if that drill bit catches, this blade's going to be spinning. So keep that in mind when you're drilling it out. Now we're going to mix up a little bit more epoxy for our pins. I'll show you how to pin them. And it doesn't take very much epoxy for your pins. You just need to just smear a little bit on them. Just go around the edge of it a little bit, and then we'll guide it down in there. Then I use you can use a hacksaw, grinder. I just use regular dikes on this small wire, and you clip it. Now let's do this other side here. Now, once you cut it with the dikes on this end, it leaves a little bit of burr, and sometimes you got to sand that or file that off in order to get the pin to go down in for your next one. That's all there is to pinning it. I'll get back to you as soon as I get her all pinned. We're ready to sand. Alright, we're back the next day. We've let this epoxy sit up overnight to get good and hard, and we're ready to start grinding on the profile. One more thing I wanted to cover with you guys on when you're drilling your knife handle out, either use a vise. If you don't have a vise, use a C-clamp to clamp that down so that if you're running a high-speed drill like this and the bit gets caught, it's not going to spin that knife blade on you. Alright, we're going to take it over to the belt sander, but first we're going to clean our belt sander. When you start sanding wood, the wood's going to clog up the pores on the belt sander, so you buy a cleaner that you can get at the hardware store, and it looks like a big eraser, and it takes all the wood shavings off the belt sander and cleans it up. After you do that and sand for a while, you'll clean it again. So let's get to it. Something else I forgot to mention is when I'm sanding on my blades, I like to cover them up with tape to keep the sand paper from hitting it and marking up your edge. But as you can see, we got the profile of the knife down. That's what she looks like. And I'm going to finish it up on my old belt sander, finish the profile up on it. I really like this belt sander for finishing all my profiles of my knives because I can get a good roundness out of this one because it's really loose. It's one of my flea market finds for $20. Okay, we got our knife finished now. This is what it looks like. Now I left it in the vinegar bath a little bit longer to give it some pitting look, to make it look older. So now we're going to sharpen the knife. I've already put it on this stone here. This stone here, the dark brown stone, gray stone, is you use water with this only. Water on this stone. This is a coarse grit stone, and you don't want to use oil because it'll clog the pores up on the stone. So I've already done that part. The second part we're going to do is we're going to do it on the honing part, and you use honing oil for that. The final finish on it, we're going to strop it like a razor strop. I use, when I get done with the clean the edge and stuff up, I got some more soft stones that I just use to get the slag and the stuff off of it after it's been tempered. So whenever you're sharpening your knife, you want to use an even amount of strokes, whether it's 6, 7 strokes. You want to go 6 on one side, 6 on the other side, 7, but use an even number of strokes. So we're going to do it on this medium grit honing now, and then we'll go to the final finish and then the stropping, and then we'll dye the handle. So you want to make sure you get your profile on the knife the way it's been ground on your stone. Count your strokes. So I put 7 on that. I'm going to put 7 on my final finish. And usually, this is just for demonstrations to show you how I sharpen it. I usually will do this 3 or 4 times. Okay, now we're going to take it on the leather strop. On the strop, you got a smooth side, your finished side of your leather, and then you got a rough side on your leather. I'm going to take it on the rough side now. Okay. When you're stropping, you're not going to bring the edge of the knife into it. You take the edge of the knife away. This cleans the small burrs off the edge of the knife from your honing and your from finished product of your using your stones. So we're going to go over the rough side and use the same amount of strokes. Then you flip it over, use your finished side. Okay, now that we got our edge on our knife, we're going to go ahead and dye our handles. I used zebra wood, and it's not the cross grain, but it's cut long grain, and that's what type of wood I used for these handles. So now we're going to dye them, and I'm going to dye them with a golden pecan. This gives a protection on the wood, dyeing it with your stain, and then you'll want to use either a clear coat or a depthane on it to seal it up to keep any moisture from getting on the wood. You can wax the wood if you want to, and you don't want to use a depthane on it. You can use other sorts of sealants on it if you want to. That choice is yours. So this ends the making of a file knife. There it is, dyed and ready. Tomorrow I'm going to start in on making a sheath, and I'm going to show you how to make a knife sheath for your knife. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. Thank you for watching.